I can reboot my own series, right? I already started a case against Zutara, but those videos were a little bit more overblown and more on the ranty, jokey side. And after I finished my Kataang series, I wanted to do a more serious deep dive of Zutara, rebranded as a serious case against Zutara. I'll be doing a chapter by chapter case as to why this ship just ain't it for me, sis. There are still gonna be jokes and expletives, because it's me. I'm also making this prologue as a disclaimer. This series isn't to bash or hate on anyone, and it isn't to tell you what you should like. I just love character analysis, video essays, and nerd shit. This is a narrative-driven deep dive, and that's all. This series is gonna end and you can still like whatever the you want. So without further ado, I present a serious case against Zutara. A serious case against Zutara. Chapter 1. Context. The context of a scene matters, and if you take the scenes out of context, they lose their meaning. With no context, this looks like spicy ship bait, but it's not. In this scene, Zuko is using Katara's most prized possession against her to get information. It's extortion, and it's not sexy. And if it is for you, alright. But Katara in this scene just wanted her necklace back and her friend safe. Next, we have this scene in the catacombs. Without context, it looks romantic. In reality, Katara just offered to heal Zuko's scar. She's a healer, and she touched his face to assess the damage. Like a doctor. She wasn't touching his face because after 2 seasons of hating him, she wanted to make out. They've only had one decent conversation. Next scene. The hug. A similar situation to before. Katara didn't decide after 3 seasons of hating Zuko that she loved him now. This was a hug of forgiveness, a thank you for earning her trust, and an apology for her misplaced rage toward him. This was the beginning of their friendship. Stick around, I'm not done. A serious case against Zutara, Chapter 2. Opposites attract. While their color palettes, nations, and elements may be opposite, Zuko and Katara as characters are not. In fact, they are very similar. They both have quite the temper. Both get combative and angry when they don't get what they want. Both have snappy comebacks and can be straight up mean sometimes. They hold grudges, and often have a one-track mind that makes it hard for them to see outside of their own beliefs. Their stark similarities also have something to do with the fact that Katara is actually Azula's character foil, but more on that later. We see just how similar they are during the Southern Raiders. They bond over the shared trauma of losing their mothers. Katara wants to hunt down and seek revenge on her mother's killer, something Zuko encourages her to do, because he spent an entire season hunting someone. It's that one-track mind thing. Both of them have a very I want to do it so I will, consequences be damned personality. And because of that, there is no balance. The wrong kind of fire is being fueled. The type of fire that's good in a battle but wrong for a long-term relationship. A case against Zutara, Chapter 3. Bias. Oh boy. You can't put one character on a pedestal and ignore all their flaws and then vilify another character for doing the exact same thing or something lesser. I mean, you could, but it's the fastest way to invalidate your point. The beauty of the characterization in Avatar is that no character is perfect. It's what makes them so damn believable and human. There are some people quick to point out every single one of Aang's missteps and flaws, write him off as toxic and immature and leave it at that, and then turn around to completely ignore all of Zuko's shortcomings. I love Zuko as a character, but he has done some really bad things. Whether he changed or not, they still happened. He burned down villages, extorted Katara, and later betrayed her trust. He betrayed his uncle. And on a lesser note, he threw a guy because he was jealous. And while there was a reason for all those things, it doesn't make them okay. And it's even pointed out by the gang, especially Katara. Every character has their flaws. But to demonize one character for theirs, and then outright ignore another's, doesn't hold up. A serious case against Zutara, Chapter 4. Keeping up appearances. I'm gonna say what we're all thinking. They look good together. They're 2 young, attractive, and badass characters. But somebody call Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper. Because far from the shallow, my ass. Please don't come for me, I just really wanted to make that joke. But seriously, I understand the appeal, but I'm talking about the narrative here. In context, Zuko is attractive, and so is Katara. Characters comment on it all the time. June even takes a dig at Zuko and tells him that Katara is out of his league. But are Zuko and Katara attractive to each other? I mean, probably. They have eyes, they can see. But during the show, there isn't a moment where they look at each other like this. There are no blushy moments like this, or kinda cute but awkward moments like this. And believe me, I looked. They know that the other is attractive. But Katara also acknowledges that Toph is attractive. And Zuko acknowledges that Ty Lee is attractive, even though he was roasting her. You can find another person attractive without being attracted. Appearances don't really matter in this case. A serious case against Zutara, Chapter 5. Attraction. Time for another bold statement. Zuko and Katara are not attracted to each other. I know. Shh. Hear me out. We've already seen both Katara and Zuko in romantic situations. Not with each other, but with other characters. Katara had a whole ass boyfriend for an episode. and Zuko and Mei were together for like half of season 3. We have seen how both of them act when they like someone. And well, they don't act like that around each other. They're not smitten. There's no blushing or complimenting. Zuko lights candles for girls he likes. He cuddles and orders fruit tarts. He offers gifts, which is super f***ing cute. Katara also makes gifts. She's super physically affectionate on more than one occasion. She also becomes really self-aware and defensive. Look how far apart they're sitting versus Sokka and Suki in the background. When they see their actors get together in the play, they make these gross out faces and move apart. Characterization, scene framing, and context matters. A Case Against Zutara, Chapter 6. Surrogate siblings. Zuko has a lot of brotherly feelings and love that he never got to truly explore. In the main series, he's an older brother with a little sister that hates him. In Zuko alone, we see him explore his brotherly side. Instead of rejecting the kid, he takes him under his wing, teaches him how to use his swords, and even offers him the knife that Iroh gave him. You're probably wondering what this has to do with Katara. Well, who else is a 14-year-old bending prodigy with an older brother, an absent mother, and a bone to pick with Zuko? It's Azula. I go more into how Azula and Katara are character foils in my Agni Kai video. But my point here is, Zuko desperately trying to earn Katara's trust and approval wasn't a romantic endeavor. It's much more likely that he looked at Katara and went, damn, I wish she was my sister instead. Someone he could adventure with. Someone he could protect. Things he couldn't really do and never got to do with Azula. Azula consistently rejected Zuko all their lives, and he didn't want it to happen again with Katara. I'm not done. A Serious Case Against Zutara, Chapter 7. Chemistry. There are many different types of chemistry. Sokka and Katara, for example, have great chemistry as siblings. It's believable that these two grew up together. Sokka and Aang have great chemistry as friends. You can imagine these two just dicking around playing Pai Sho or something. There's also such thing as negative chemistry, such as with Zuko and Azula. You believe they grew up together, but they also really don't like each other. And you can really compare it to Zuko and Katara's relationship throughout most of the series. Also, I'm gonna say it so that you don't have to. Enemies to lovers trope. But that's not what I'm talking about here. For a lot of the series, Zuko has a lot of disdain for Katara. He blatantly insults her to her face, calling her a water tribe peasant. He attacks her with no remorse to get to Aang. Katara, for lack of a better term, hates his f***ing guts. She even threatens to kill him. And that's the second half of season 3. I did a little bit of math. Out of 61 episodes, Katara and Zuko are friends for only 5, which is only about 8.2% of the series. A Serious Case Against Zutara, Chapter 8. Timing. A lot of people cite enemies to lovers as a reason why Zutara could work. However, there just wasn't enough time for it. The plants weren't watered, homie. I already touched on this in a previous chapter, but I'm gonna touch on it again. Avatar as a whole has 61 episodes. Seasons 1 and 2 have 20 episodes, while Season 3 has 21. The Southern Raiders, aka the episode where Katara and Zuko finally set aside their differences and become friends, is the 16th episode of Book 3. And as far as all of Avatar is concerned, episode 56. Which means Katara and Zuko only liked each other for 5 episodes, which is 8.2% of the entire series. And I know what you're thinking, Sokka and Suki didn't have that much screen time. Yui was only around for like 3 episodes. The stark difference though is that none of those characters ever actively hated each other. They also took a liking to each other very quickly. Given more time and development, this could have been a thing. But to say the plants were watered here, and not other places, just doesn't make a lot of sense in context. A Serious Case Against Zutara, Chapter 9. Maturity. Another argument I hear all the time is that Zuko and Katara are just a more mature pairing. I understand that they're 2 of the older members of the gang, other than Sokka, but being older doesn't automatically mean more mature. Both Zuko and Katara can be very immature. I touch on this more in their individual cases, but let me still offer a few examples. Zuko throws multiple temper tantrums over the course of the series. He yells, "Forget it," and yeets this shell because Mei doesn't want it. Iroh offered him tea and he got pissed at that too. Even late into season 3, he's still very easily frustrated. Katara gets salty as shit when Aang is shown to be a better waterbender. She whole ass roasts Toph for being blind. What the f- Even late into season 3, Katara can be really insensitive and still has a lot of learning to do. And this is not to say I hate these two. Katara and Zuko are fantastic characters, but I can't sit here and ignore their flaws. They have amazing moments of maturity, but that's not who they are all the time. A Serious Case Against Zutara, Chapter 10. Change. Zuko changed for the better. And Katara didn't see 90% of it. I think sometimes we as viewers confuse what we see with what the characters see. We saw the beginning of Zuko's change of heart all throughout Season 2. We saw his backstory, him interacting with family, being nice to kids, going on his first date, all of it. Katara did not. When she spots Zuko working at the tea shop toward the end of season 2, she panics. She goes to snitch on him because for all she knows, he could be laying low ready to strike again. Because one of her freshest memories is him doing this shit. And he didn't want her help when Iroh got hurt either. And when Zuko pops up again here, Katara's not having it. Because the last time she trusted Zuko, he did this. The only one in the group not instantly opposed to Zuko was Toph. Because she wasn't there when he was on his bullshit. And she could sense that he was being sincere. We saw Zuko change. Katara had to see it for herself. A case against Zutara. Epilogue. First and foremost, I really want to thank you all for sitting through this. Character and plot analysis is just really fun for me, and I genuinely enjoy making these types of videos. Again, I don't make them to sway people or hate on anybody, but I do have some closing statements. Katara and Zuko are two amazingly well-written and badass characters. They feel and act like people you could know in real life, and that makes them very easy and accessible to identify with. And the way both of their arcs cross paths at the end is incredible. But in my honest opinion, Zutara is one of those things that's great in theory, but impractical in canon. And that's not to say you can't ship it or like it. I ship and like things that make no sense in context too. The issue isn't liking Zutara. This show should be fun for everyone. But I do think there's an issue in blatant mischaracterization, demonizing other characters, changing context, and basically rewriting the story to make it make sense. I guess my point is it doesn't have to make sense to be fun.